Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of News Dose. We'll give you all of the latest news in the game industry. And I know that Xbox has been in the news a lot lately, but now there has been an interesting development beyond just the Xbox Series X, and a little bit more about acquisitions again, as they may actually be looking to acquire a Poland developer. So we will discuss that here in just a moment, and what is some of the possible developers that they could actually acquire in Poland. There is some pretty big names here, so you're not going to want to miss that. Also, there is some other stuff to talk about as well today, such as an unannounced Capcom game, Google Stadia acquires a new studio, Dragon Quest XI success, and more, so stay tuned for that. But for the moment, let's talk about some acquisitions, because yet again, Xbox is in the news for an acquisition rumor. Now this shouldn't be too unexpected, as Phil Spencer did say recently that they weren't done making acquisitions, and yes, they are still looking for an Asian studio. But this is the first time that we've actually been linked to another country besides Asia. Now it's looking entirely possible that they may be looking to make an acquisition for a Poland studio, and this is according to the director of We Are Alright, Boris Nyaspalik, and I do apologize if I butchered his name, but yes, Boris said on his podcast that Team Xbox was in Poland and that they're interested in new teams that could join Xbox Game Studios. He did say that he doesn't know if anybody was actually acquired, but that he knows of at least one studio that they have talked to, and for Xbox fans, this could be a very interesting story to follow because Poland has some very good studios over there. And while this is just a rumor for the moment, we're going to talk about some of the possibilities, which includes the likes of CD Projekt Red, the developers behind The Witcher 3. And I know some fans' hearts just stopped at the thought of that, but I think that is the least likely developer to be acquired in Poland. They are worth a lot of money, and I think it's actually like 6 billion or 7 billion even, and they're also a public traded company, so I think the likelihood of CD Projekt Red being acquired is extremely low. So I wouldn't get your hopes up for that. Some other public traded companies there includes 11-Bit Studios, which worked on Frostpunk. You have Bloober Teams, which most recently released Blair Witch, CI Games, who worked on the Sniper franchise, and Flying Wild Hog, the developers behind Shadow Warrior. In all reality, I do think that public trade companies are the least likely to happen, though I don't think you can completely rule them out either. I think anything is possible, but I do believe the next four are much more likely as they are independent studios. These include People Can Fly, Farm 51, The Astronauts, and Techland. All four of these are pretty good developers too. People Can Fly are probably not too expensive, and I think some of their games would fit in with Xbox Studios. I mean, we have seen them work on Gears of War in the past. Granted, it was just Judgment, which wasn't exactly the best Gears of War in the world, but they do have their own IP as well, such as Bulletstorm. That game turned out pretty well, and then you also have Techland, which could be interesting. They work on both Dead Island as well as Dead by Daylight. That game alone has been very successful, and I think that could really interest Xbox. Of course, Astronaut, the developers behind Ethan Carter, and then you also have Farm 51, which both of these could be good options as well. To be honest though, Poland has a lot of talent, and pretty much any one of these developers could be a great pickup for Team Xbox. I actually never realized all the studios that was located in Poland up until today, but I think these acquisition talks can both excite people as well as make others nervous, but this is how I look at it. Xbox supports both Xbox as well as PC, so even if a studio is acquired, there is still options where you can play it. And plus, it will allow these developers to polish their games up more. I mean, we've heard studio after studio kind of praise Xbox after being acquired and talk about the freedom that they have. Xbox has a lot of resources, they have the money, other studios can help out, and they're offering creative freedom to these developers. So I think that is a recipe for success. And actually, I remember Matt Booty, the Xbox studio head, saying something like he was telling studios during acquisition talks, "What is your dream project?" or something to that effect, and that is what they're offering for developers. I mean, really the only difference with these developers after being acquired is really they just have a budget. So to see these developers get a real chance to make the project that they want with actual funding, I think it will be a big thing for these studios. I think we are going to see some high quality games come from Xbox Game Studios next generation, and that's why I don't worry about these acquisitions. It's always interesting to see insiders chime in as well, which the insider Shinobi did simply come out and say they're certainly still shopping around. So with that said, I think we can expect some kind of acquisition or two before Xbox Series X launches next year. But what about you? Do you think Xbox will indeed acquire a Poland developer? And who do you think they will snatch up if they do? Let me know in the comments below. And speaking of acquisitions, Google Stadia snatched up a studio today with an acquisition of Typhoon Studios. This is actually a studio that was rumored to be acquired by Xbox just earlier this year, but it never ended up happening. But now Google got them in a very surprising move, and this could really signify just the beginning of Google's efforts towards Google Stadia. And I know people have had a lot of issues with Google Stadia, understandably so, but it doesn't seem like Google is ready to throw in the towel just yet. And you have to wonder if they'll be making more acquisitions going forward. Typhoon Studios, though, is a new team, and they will be releasing their new game Journey to a Savage Planet pretty soon. And the good news here is that this game will still be releasing on consoles and PC, so you don't have to worry about that. Nonetheless, this is a really big move by Google, and I do expect more acquisitions from them going forward. In other news, and I find this one to be very interesting because Capcom has been sending out invites to Resident Evil ambassadors to playtest an unannounced game. But what exactly is this unannounced game? Of course, it is unannounced, so that immediately rules out Resident Evil 3, considering it just got announced last week. So what could it be? And why are they specifically inviting Resident Evil ambassadors? But I think this could be one of three games. I think the first two games that will immediately come to mind is a Resident Evil 4 remake or possibly Resident Evil 8, both in which I think is very possible. We have got a Resident Evil remake in 2 consecutive years, so I wouldn't be shocked to see them do Resident Evil 4 as well. Granted, the remaster already looks pretty good, but then you have the possibility of Resident Evil 8. Now, it has been a few years since we've seen a completely new installment in the franchise, with Resident Evil 7 releasing in 2017, so maybe it actually could be a new Resident Evil game. But I do think that there is one other big possibility, and we just talked about this earlier this week in another video, and that is Dino Crisis. Of course, we know that Capcom just filed a trademark for Dino Crisis. Granted, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I still look back to when Capcom said they're looking to revive more dormant IP, which Dino Crisis would fit this criteria. I personally think that a Dino Crisis remake just makes too much sense, and because it has a lot of similarities with the Resident Evil franchise, I could easily see Capcom sending invites to Resident Evil ambassadors. They could make Dino Crisis in the Resident Evil engine, and honestly, I think it would look pretty amazing seeing this game on modern hardware. Seeing those dinosaurs would be absolutely glorious, especially if it releases on Xbox SX and PlayStation 5. But yeah, what do you think this mystery game could possibly be? Would you like to see them remake Resident Evil 4 or Dino Crisis, or would you like to see a completely new game like Resident Evil 8? Let me know. Moving on, Falcom announced that they would be creating their own engine, and a lot of people seem to be very skeptical of this. Falcom is a small company, and it seems people are kind of concerned whether or not they actually have the resources to do something like this. Though I do think if we look at this in the more long-term view, it could actually be beneficial. Currently, Falcom is using Sony's Fire engine, which may be one reason we see a lot of games launch exclusively on PlayStation devices, though I could be wrong about that. But if Falcom makes their own engine, they could make it to where they could release multi-platform games on launch a little bit easier. I mean, definitely when you consider the large majority of their sales come from Japan, and the Nintendo Switch is huge over there, I do think releasing more games on the Nintendo Switch would make sense. Of course, I could be completely wrong about this, but one other thing to look at is royalty fees. If Falcom has their own engine, they will no longer have to pay these fees to Sony, and in that sense, they will make more money in the long term. Either way though, I do think Falcom is a good company, so I hope everything turns out great for them in this regard. And speaking of Japanese games, we did get some good news from Square Enix, where they revealed that Dragon Quest XI has sold 5.5 million copies worldwide. These are fantastic numbers all around. Dragon Quest has always been really big in Japan, but it's often been a little bit more on the niche side in the West, so I would like to see the ratio split on Dragon Quest per country. But either way, I'm glad to hear it's doing so well. Dragon Quest is continuously a top-tier JRPG, and Dragon Quest XI is among the best in the industry with its old-school turn-based combat. Definitely go check it out if you like these type of games. I mean, these numbers, 5.5 million, it's very well deserved. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is Xbox's Games with Gold January lineup, which includes Styx Shards, Batman the Telltale series, Tekken 6, and LEGO Star Wars 2. Overall, it seems like a solid month. I'll definitely be checking out the Batman Telltale series myself. I mean, they always did make really good point-and-click adventure games, but I did miss this one when it first released. Games with Gold is looking okay though, maybe not too crazy, but it's a solid month overall. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit that bell notification and subscribe button. Peace out.